what is the importance of the construction market in the actual Saudi environment? Holistic point of view from labor, logistics, industry, also the private sector.
Well, many of you probably know that Qiddiya is a public investment fund project. The public investment fund exists not only to promote these exciting and get the seeds of these really exciting giga projects planted, but also is responsible for making sure that the stage is set for economic growth, economic diversity. These are all keys to Vision 2030. Hand in hand with that will come social reform. Massive change is already happening in Saudi Arabia. We get queries occasionally from the Public Investment Fund as to about new systems, new technologies, new construction methods. They're constantly researching how best to create a world-class industrial economic sector in Saudi. So in country there should also be, there's a lot of natural resources. There'll be creating mining operations and production of natural resources that all of you manufacturers can use to source and build your products, and then they'll also be doing joint ventures. So I think probably, we always talk a lot about tourism when we're talking about these gigas. That will play a big role, but the collateral effect of building a viable industrial economy, a modern economy, is, in my opinion, I'm no economist, but that has an even bigger effect, and eventually it will even transition to be an exporting country. So we're kind of with the catalyst for all this stuff. I mean, it's really great to be here at this point in time in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, as I used to say, I'm quite a lot of gray hair, and I believe that we will not see happen anymore in the world what's happening now at the moment in Saudi Arabia, the magnitude of the importance of the project. Yeah. That also will help to stimulate also the private sector, because once the infrastructure are there, also the private sector will invest quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, there will be a viable economy, not everything just cash from the government or cash from oil sales.
Zach, we are having some problem in recruiting sometimes the right people, and one I believe one of the most challenging in the country is recruit the right people and try to keep loyal to the project. What are the main issues, or what we want to discuss about how to find the right skill, how to find the right experience, and also how to keep them committed to work with you and your team, the projects in general?
Yeah, look, that's a very good question. It's a very challenging task that we are undergoing. I think everyone who's working in Saudi now, the clients, from the client side, and even the consultants, the problem is to recruit the right skills, as you've said. And it hasn't been easy, I have to say. Probably because of the wrong perception that people have about Saudi Arabia. I have to state the obvious: anyone who has to work for us has to be based in Saudi Arabia. So that poses a challenge from the outset, because as we all know, and as I said, the perception of people about living in Saudi Arabia is a bit adverse. It's not to the advantage of the country. However, what we're witnessing over the last 2, 3, and 4 years, this perception is changing. Obviously, life in Saudi has changed a lot in the last 5 years, and this has helped us a bit in reaching out to the right skills that you would want to do. What we're not trying to do is just wait for people to knock our door. Obviously, it works both ways. So people come to you, they want to work for these projects. I've heard about them. They have the aspirations to work for these projects, but we also do it the other way. We try to reach out to the best skills out there in the market, wherever they are. The team that we have in the design team, I think the team is about, at the moment, growing to 110. This is 110, and this is not, we're not designers, we are the client. So imagine to have 110 people, and the amount of research you have to do on the right skills to bring them, that takes a while. So this has been quite challenging. I mean, but I have to be honest, what helps us in Saudi is first, it's a tax-free, like the UAE, so that helps in terms of packages. Probably people get a bit motivated with that, but that's not enough. I think the biggest motivation for people is the type of work that we're doing and the scale of projects that we are doing. This is, I mean, I can think it to myself. This is why I moved to Saudi to work on these projects. But the other challenge is, so you get the people, you have a large team, but then people start moving. So they leave for many reasons. Either for personal reasons, they want to go back home, they always plan, because the way it works in Saudi, at least with the PIF, it's a 2-year or 3-year contract. So at the end of 2 years, a lot of people come in because they want to do 2 years or 3 years. So that's one side of it. Their contract ends and they want to go back. It was for them a great experience, and they want to pursue other goals in their lives. But also one of the challenges that we have is people moving amongst these companies and amongst PIF. There are some regulations to govern that, how people can move, but you can't help it. It is what it is. Once people are there, and it's relatively small market especially for the top skill. So there's a lot of movement. It's a challenge to maintain them. There's lots to learn how to do that. Hopefully we're on the way of achieving some goals. We have some goals how to do it, and we're working on it.
And this frequent movement is affecting also the performance of the project, or?
Look, we try to control it as much as it does. So the way we structure the team, how the teams are working, it should not depend on a person or like on a couple of persons. It has to be, if someone's away, even if you take it to someone's on holiday for I don't know how many weeks. So you have to have the strategy in place how to keep the projects going. Surely with COVID has taught us a lot how we can do work in alternative ways. So sometimes people do have personal circumstances where they have to be stationed elsewhere for a certain period of time. So you give them a bit of that flexibility. You have certain days per year where people are on top of their holidays that they can work remotely. So that helps. We have to be very innovative on how to create, how to attract the talents.
And motivated.
And motivate them. It hasn't been easy. I have to be honest, it hasn't been easy. Especially with trying to be quite diverse and inclusive, especially with women. It has been a bit challenging. Because for them, it's a perception that they have for a woman living in Saudi is not necessarily a reflection of what the reality is. So this it will create a momentum, and people will start hearing that it is different to what they think.
Timothy, same for you? For your team, 3 years in Qiddiya, no?
Yeah, I'm 3 years at Qiddiya now. Retaining the world's top talent, attracting them and then keeping them on board is certainly always a challenge. Expats generally enter on a project basis, and the projects generally don't last that long. Corporations that I've seen, some ways that I've seen corporations deal with this is to retention in general, not just within expat or a kind of a hybrid company, is to build the young talent up, have a really robust mentorship program. In order to do that, you have to keep those top experts for, probably about 5 years. I would, again, I'm speaking out of school here. The real experts in this are corporate organization specialists and HR, but you need the top talent there mentoring the young leaders for at least 5 years before they really feel comfortable and can take a leadership role of their own. retaining the Saudis at Qiddiya is not hard at all. I mean, they're really enthusiastic about being there. What they generally are hungry for is mentorship, especially in these new economic sectors like tourism, hospitality. You know, it's not something that was on their radar for so many years, and their parents. If we can really get that next generation of young leaders in place, then we don't have to worry so much about retaining the world's top talent.
You know, if I can add, sorry, Mohammed, if you want to talk about that, I really want to shed a bit of light on the Saudi talent that we have in the kingdom, especially with the young generations. I had the chance here and the privilege of meeting some of these young designers who are coming from, I don't know what's their background education, but you can see from their achievements, they're fantastic, they're amazing. They're so full of energy and full of innovative ideas. And the kingdom is hungry. All these PIF projects, all these giga projects, they're hungry for these talents. So we're lucky in a way because in Saudi, the new generation, they have demonstrated a huge skills, whether you bring them as consultants or you bring them as recruits working for you as part of the new teams. They're mostly like in the mid-20s, early 30s. And this is where you want to bring these talents and put them on your side to help building these fantastic projects. So there's a lot of, we don't do it, because we all know that in any country, most of the countries in GCC, you have a certain percentages. It's a bit regulated how many you should have. But luckily in our case, we didn't have to do that, abide by the regulations. We're doing it because of the great talent that we're facing. And obviously, you prefer to have someone who's local because you know these guys do not have, for them, they're building their country, they want to stay in. So that will help us with keeping the staff. Expats, usually they tend to leave after a while, but the nationals are very proud of what they're doing, and it's a great asset to build and keep with our company, and we look a lot at them. But what we're facing is the fact that these are probably in the mid-level. They haven't have built lots of experience now as a client for such giga projects. But that's the aim, is to grow these people and become the leaders of these projects.
Yeah, many of them study abroad.
Yes. Yeah.
And we are in a moment where also many of their parents study abroad because these trends started maybe 15, 20 years ago. And sooner or later, we will hand over to them. And that's, I believe, what's the main goal, because they don't have at the moment so many opportunities to go and make experience abroad. So all the projects that are inland where they can be involved, they will start to grow and gain experience, and at the moment that they hand over the
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'd like to add a couple of things. I mean, Saudi, we've been involved in Saudi since we've had an office there since 2006, and I mean, in the past there have been some amazing projects. You know, it's Qatar, the KFE, the Kingdom Tower, and also the luxury. You know, all the private palaces that are being converted into boutique hotels now, things like that. So the know-how existed. I agree. A lot of people sort of. Some people went abroad, studied, maybe stayed there. They're coming back. They're being interested to come back. But I think the main problem we have is that what's happening in Saudi now has never happened anywhere in the world. And I doubt it will happen anywhere else. So no matter how much local talent, no matter how much of the best specialists that they are hiring, there will be some problems. You know, the scale of the projects, it's way more than any region can handle. You know, it was probably China was like that a few years ago,
yeah.
And even that it's not at this scale.
But the population in China is quite bigger, so that where they can take it's other scale.
So I think this is really the biggest challenge. I think the know-how is there, the contractors are there, the suppliers. They have to be a bit more involved and more proactive in these projects. I'm sure it will happen. It will all happen and will be delivered in an amazing way.
Starting to move in the direction of the product, based on your experience, which is the way most of the people here are trying to sell their product and their services. What is the way they need to be aware how to sell the product to the different project or to the architect selling? And what is the main guideline for the regulation to approve this product in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, basically, the Saudi is going through a lot of regulation things. They're developing a lot of things. But what's one thing very special for products. They have obviously their SASO regulations. The manufacturers have to start registering. Once the sort of floodgates open and they have to start delivering. One is there will be no time to sort of do the paperwork and the administrative work. Really, they should be ready. They should set up there. The projects are there, the contractors are there, even if the consultants are all over the place. There it's what's going to happen. I'm very happy that a couple of the international suppliers are actually setting up factories there, which is very, very important because it's a huge market. It's a huge market. Just like Dubai was a few years ago, what we're serving everywhere. Saudi will serve the Saudi market, which is much bigger than all of the rest of the GCC. But it's their idea is to export also. It will be they have the money, they have the willpower to sort of develop industry that could serve Africa, could serve Europe, and the rest of the Middle East. So I encourage all suppliers, all manufacturers to go there, to look at it, and to set up as quick as possible. It's an amazing market.
And look, I can add something to this. It's part of the culture. People like to shake hands with people and have a direct discussion. Emails don't really work, or messages, or phone calls, or Teams. When it comes to doing business, and then you need to shake hands, and they need to see the products, they need to see the people. So the physical presence is really important. Like Mohammed said, I was happy to hear, I've sat with a couple of the great industry leaders in certain sectors that they plan to move and be physically in Saudi, because that's how it works. I used to work in Europe, and it wasn't that important to have someone coming on your door to sell you something or to show you a product. You could do it over a phone call, over emails, and that's it. But in GCC, it's different. It's the culture, and you have to go by the rules.
Yeah, especially Saudi, they want to hug you, they want to smell you, they want to feel you, and it's smell because they want to understand that.
You're talking about the product, not the
product. So it's important for them. Don't see the people going to the meeting with the luggage because they just arrive in the morning and they're leaving in the evening with a tour. So it's important for them. See. Having the presence there. See, that's one is living there.
It's not salespeople, it's people who are committed, people who are partners in these projects, and they have the vision to continue for the liability for all of that. Like you said, to see someone coming with the luggage and leaving and they have to catch a flight in a couple of hours, it's not the right message.
Timothy, which are the advantage and disadvantage for collective sourcing? So for these multiple projects, so one I want to go in there and try to sell the same product to multiple projects. What are the advantage or the disadvantage or the risk if there are?
Public investment fund is going to be running that effort, and I think they're looking at risk in terms of in the legal sense of making commitments that are not in the best. The deal making is quite challenging in a large collective sourcing contract. One of the advantages can be that it ensures to both sides. Advantages to both sides are that it ensures a forecast supply, which is a big logistical risk that we can help mitigate by doing some collective sourcing, and then on the supplier side, it's a sort of a reliable demand over a medium to long term. For the owner, it also makes some sense because we just go through the quality control thing once, and then it's just inspections and so forth as the installation occurs, and routine quality checks at the factories. 200 different submittals for the same material can be very burdensome. And by the way, we intend to reject a lot of submittals.
I just gave you this knowledge, most of them also, right?
Yeah. No, I just want to take this opportunity to point out there should be very high quality standards. I'm sure that AMAALA has very high quality standards.
Absolutely.
Hyper luxury. So for installation and quality of materials, standards and procedures, we will not reject any compliant products, but
the biggest problem is not with the material. Probably you can secure that the material that you're getting is the right material and the right product. It's the installation, it's the workmanship. This is this is a huge subject.
Yeah.
I think it was touched upon a bit earlier this morning. I mean, you can have fantastic pieces of marble, fantastic pieces of chandeliers, great sanitary work. But it's the biggest challenge is how to install it in the finishing. Yeah. Let's not talk about it now. I don't think are we talking about this?
No. If we're just staying on collective sourcing for a minute, the most likely candidates for collective sourcing over a broad spectrum of giga projects, or even just, let's say, only Qiddiya, we have 24 districts, let's say 50 sites. Okay, for these 24 districts, we as the owner will provide the roofing membrane. The types of materials that will be collectively sourced are not likely to be the final finishes, because the architects need to have more control over it. But things like maybe roofing membrane insulation, all these kinds of acoustic treatments that are behind the final finish are good candidates for collective sourcing.
Excellent. Before I pass to the second part, so the sustainability as part of the design, any question related to products or what we just discussed? One question, Zach. You mentioned about you were working in Europe. Why you decide to go and work in Saudi Arabia? Why you decide to leave a secure position, maybe in Europe, to go and work in Saudi Arabia?
Okay. Look, I think this man, he likes that. Look, I think the pictures that we are displaying here in the background, they tell lots of that, and why someone would want to move to Saudi Arabia and work on these projects. Honestly, it's once in a lifetime career opportunity that you can achieve this. This is the Marine Life Institute, by the way, at AMAALA. I'm going to talk a bit about it when we come to the sustainability part. But it's two things. It's the type of projects, the scale of the projects. But yes, money is important. But you can do it if it's only for the money. You can do it for a short while and then leave, because otherwise you can say any other place in the GCC you don't have to pay tax, so you can be anywhere else. So the reason why, for me personally, Saudi, it's strictly the projects, the type of projects, the scale of the projects. What Mohammed said, it's never been done before, and to be part of it, especially for me, I'm from the region. And for us, Saudi was always you always look at Saudi as that place. And now to be able and to take part of the change the face of Saudi for the next few years, I think it's a privilege. So that's mostly it. It's these type of projects. I was in Dubai before, I was in London before, worked on a huge scale projects, but nothing, seriously, honestly, nothing compares to this. And I'm an architect, and every architect, we have our ego. I want to do the greatest and the best, and this is it.
Timothy, you were in US before. He was working for Disney. So also a long journey to go to Saudi Arabia. Probably affect also family component, no?
Yeah, I was born and raised in the US, and as a consultant, I did a lot of work for the Disney Corporation, Parks and Resorts. Most recently, I spent most of my time in China. Also, we did some projects for Disney Parks and Resorts. but kind of coming back to it is a big leap. But my family's kind of been used to me, and my wife is also very keen to experience different parts of the world. One of the reasons we came to this part of the world, to Saudi, one of the attractive things is its location on the globe. Gave us access to Europe, which we very much missed, and so that's another reason I'm happy to be here in Barcelona, although I have to leave at 3 o'clock. My wife's birthday is tomorrow. But yeah, my kids are grown, so that makes things a lot easier. My daughter spent her last year of high school in China. I mean, maybe it's just, every family is different. And certainly during COVID, it was a huge challenge for people. If I had been stuck there without my wife with me, it's just she happened to be stuck there with me. So that made things bearable, but it was a huge strain on families that had to be separated. And hopefully, nothing like that will happen again, where we all get locked down. But no, we've coped really well, and we're happy to be there. It's surprisingly an easy place to live, and one of the best kept secrets about Saudi is that the weather is, in Riyadh, weather is gorgeous, at least half of the year.
Yeah, definitely much better than Dubai.
I mean, and some of you may say, well, that's underwhelming. What's the other half like? But it's really, really, it's a nice place to live.
Thanks a lot. Going to the sustainability side, Zach, you mentioned yesterday that you are keen at how the sustainability is part of your user experience of the project itself. Can you explain what is the component sustainability? What you are planning the users be a part of a sustainable journey, sustainable vacation? Because AMAALA is vacation destination.
Yeah, that's why I want to talk a bit about sustainability, not from the pure construction point of view, but from a guest experience point of view, rather than focusing on where do you source your materials from, the carbon footprint or whatever, because obviously we have all of that. Just to make it clear, all our projects, all of them, without any single exception, every asset has to be a LEED certificate as a minimum. That's the entry level for every project. It has to be, LEED Gold certificate. We have a couple of iconic buildings which are platinum, but all the projects are LEED Gold. So that's already setting very high standards for a project of, we're talking about 100 billion riyal of a budget. And to have every single building with a LEED Gold certificate is a huge achievement, plus all the other platinum ones. So that is aside, but it's from the guest experience. How do you explain to a guest that you are coming to a very sustainable project? What would help in our case, because AMAALA is very destined, it's a destination which is very targeted to a specific type of holidays. It's not, I don't mean it in a bad way, but it's not an entry level. So the type of operators that we have and the type of projects that we have are very targeted to a very specific sector of the market. Whether they're coming to invest in these assets or they're coming to enjoy a holiday in these assets. So you'd expect in a way, some of these guests will have a bit of understanding of the importance of sustainability, what it means in our current world to be sustainable, the responsibility that each one of us as a human being sharing life on this earth have, and what are your duties. So you want to encourage how you would come to a sustainable project. So that the clientele that we're addressing, hopefully these are people who would appreciate how to be in a sustainable environment. And then the operators that we have, they're all with no exception. This is their first target. How sustainable is our projects? How sustainable can we be? Not only at the level, as I said, materiality, but the whole thing, how do you bring the water? There's a little story that I would like to mention. This will show you how much our board of directors and the kingdom in general, they focus on this sustainability issue. On one of the side trips that we had, one of our board members, who is a minister in the cabinet, it was a very hot day, looking at the sites, and someone brought water in sorry, I don't mean to be, in a plastic bottle. He refused to drink from a plastic bottle. He said, we're here to promote sustainability. I don't want that. You change everything to glass bottles. So one of the projects that we have is to harvest water, drinking water from the clouds and from evaporation. It's a very high scale initiatives that we're doing. This is on top of preserving the marine environment, or the coral. The Red Sea is rich of the coral life, how to protect them. The sea turtles, there's a lot of richness in the biodiversity of the Red Sea that we're trying to preserve, and this is one of the things that I want to talk about, the Marine Life Institute. So this is a very iconic building which has the shape of the coral sitting on a prime land. And the purpose of that project is basically to take all the dead corals from the Red Sea, bring them into this institution, treat them, and send them back to the Red Sea. So this is part of the regeneration that we're doing of the corals of the Red Sea, but also it applies to all the sea animals which have been, their life is endangered because of the pollution. So you bring them to this institution, and people can come in and see how these experts and the scientists are working on the regeneration of the Red Sea components. And it applies also to the dark sky strategy. Probably all the other projects, the giga projects, they have to follow the same. We follow a dark sky strategy, so there's no light pollution. When you look at all cities now, all cities in the world, the light pollution has proven to have a lot of severe negative health effects on the humans. It deprives you from sleep. There's a lot of studies on that. So we're applying a dark sky strategy on the projects, obviously preserving all the marine life, preserving the natural beauty of our sites. But also it's the way we want the guests to interact with these projects. We explain to them about how important sustainability it is for us. From the minute you book your hotel, all our projects, they are carbon free. There's no private cars in our projects. So the minute you arrive to the airport, you'll be picked up by an AMAALA fleet, which is an electric car, and you'll be taken to your destination. And all the transport within the assets, we're talking about huge master plans here, 25 kilometers square, and it's all operated by electric cars. So the concept is it's a whole ecosystem about sustainability. It doesn't stop at where do you source your material from. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, we have some carbon-free zones in Qiddiya too. One of the questions that I always ask is how you communicate all of this to them. I mean, it's kind of the guest knows when they get into an electric car, but all of the other things that we do tend to be invisible. Do you, Mohammed, do you guys sometimes work with instrumentation or monitoring systems and sort of public communication ideas?
Yeah, I mean, we do it more sort of for research prior to doing the project to see what external factors affect it. But I think generally, I mean, sustainability for me is there's two parts. I mean, putting aside the certification part, because that's also a bit, you can use a material, but you have to bring it from a few countries away. The main thing about sustainability is in at least in the design stage, I'm not talking about the operations and afterwards, it's the building designed to what it needs to be done. A LEED platinum building that's empty, it's the most unsustainable thing there is. So design has to be optimized always. Think of cubic meters, not square meters, because air is cubic meters, it's not a square meter. Think about a hotel. If you can do a hotel room of that should be 58 meters, if you can do it 56 meters, and you don't lose any of the feeling or the luxury part, that is for me sustainable design. The other part, and going back a bit to products, we just recently did here in Barcelona actually the first LEED Platinum residential refurbishment project, and it cost at the end 35% more than if we had done it without this certification. And this is down to suppliers and products. I mean, why is it more expensive? Okay, maybe if it was regulated and it had to comply with this, prices will go down. But I really do not see why this should be. And it is a limit. I mean, this developer is a very strange developer that accepted doing this project. Any other developer, you tell them, okay, we'll give you a LEED Platinum and will cost you 35% more, and they say no. So I think it's again, it's something that everyone is, it's a buzzword now, which is great. Everyone is aware of sustainability, but we have to design it not thinking about the numbers or about the certification, but really about the use of the building and trying to get the cost down of some of the materials that are imperative for sustainable building.
Mohammed, another question. How is important for you the sustainability for your project? I mean, when you approach them, you approach them and the client in general, you approach them proposing sustainability, or you adapt sustainability because the client require that you have some sustainability inputs in the design?
No. It's definitely something embedded in the culture. I mean, for me, really, it's almost, I don't like to talk about sustainability. It's a given. You know, it does not make sense to do something that's not sustainable. Really, I mean, we have an obligation. If our impact on Earth is so big, because being architects, developers, or contractors, we have to take care of that. And this is doing everything. I mean, thinking everything with sustainability. It should be the other way around. You know, it should be really strange to do something else, not really strange to do something sustainable. We shouldn't tell people to do something sustainable. It's a given. It's a standard thing.
I think the word has changed now. We're going to use the term longevity more than sustainability. Yeah. That's more important about the whole life cycle of a project. It's not about how you build it, it's how you use it afterwards, and how you manage it, how you operate it.
Still about sustainability, you represent investor, you represent a developer. How is important the decision from the investor point of view? Is this affect sometimes they say it's too expensive, the project, or how is affecting the power of purchase from your owner that you represent when it's coming to decide about a project that is more or less sustainable?
I can speak briefly and also let my colleagues speak on that. I think one of the things that happened around the year 2000 was that these rating systems like LEED, BREEAM, and others, it kind of changed the mindset in the marketplace to where building in a certain way and developing in a certain way, in a sustainable way, was something that became, there was a market demand for it, I mean, as a concept. It makes your property more valuable to display the U.S. Green Building Council emblem. Tenants are more likely to lease there. There's all sorts of data was collected, like employee satisfaction, employee health, reduced number of sick leave days. And so your tenants, they just want a healthy building. I'm thinking only about commercial office buildings. That's how the Green Building Council started, with commercial office buildings. The same thing goes into every aspect of quality of life. And so building that demand is where the transformation occurred, and it's kind of exciting. I think it is kind of the norm now. You still have to say it. I mean, almost every product representative I spoke with here almost sort of led with that. So there's a demand for it, but then there's also the Vision 2030. I mean, just read it. We just kind of have to do it.
I mean, we have to accept that there's no other way. I mean, sustainability is the only way. Longevity is the only way. You have to educate part of the programs that we do in our assets is to educate people as well not in a direct way, but indirectly lead them to live a more sustainable life, for more longevity. So there's a lot in our projects program about educating the children about organic farming, about how you build these projects, longevity of these projects, how do you, like all the projects that we have a huge solar farm, so everything is solar powered. So you want to explain to them. So hopefully this, because we're spending, there's a markup, there's a big markup, like Mohammed was saying here in Barcelona 35, probably in Saudi, because of the context we're working, probably can go up to 50%. But what we're hoping is that people would want to be part of this. They want to come and see, and they want to get educated, and they're willing to pay the extra money just to learn and to see how things can happen and how can you realize these sort of projects. It depends on the humans. It depends on us at the end of the day if we're willing, and I think we should be willing to spend a bit more to enjoy longer.
Invest.
To enjoy longer.
Is it expenditure or is it an investment? To spend or to invest?
Look, both. I mean, I think it's both. We're spending more, obviously, and we're hoping that this will encourage people to come because they want to be part of this. They want to learn about it. How, like, when you explain to someone that all the power that you will have in this resort is all solar powered, that the water we're getting from sustainable resources, and we can explain to them that there's no electric car, it's all electric cars, and what's the impact of this on the environment. And you can, when you tell them, when they go at night and enjoy the assets with a dark sky strategy, obviously everything is dimmed light, we don't have any uplights. How does it feel to be in a project like this? I think people will be willing to pay a premium to be in that.
And that's what I believe is the investment. So the investor for you that spent 35%, I believe he saw the project as an investment because they have upselling to certain kind of people that appreciate more and are ready to pay more sometimes if the building is designed and constructed in a certain standard.
He's not here, so I can say
Okay.
he did it because it was going to be the first building in the world.
Oh, in the world. Okay.
I don't think if there were other platinum purpose residential, he would not have done.
Okay.
35% cost is a lot. So
It's a lot.
for a developer.
Yeah, and that's a kind of extreme, but to be the first in the world, I mean, whatever the incentive, I mean, it got done, so that's that's a positive thing. Any way you look at it, even if there's just a 2% or 0.5%, we're taught to listen to the developers when they regarding initial cost, and those little initial costs are hard to justify, but there's a lot of data out there that shows that it is an investment. It's not, you're not throwing away money. It's kind of, and you'll appreciate this. It's like when developers decide, we want to save money on design. That's not the place where you really are going to be able to save money. I mean, you can save a little bit of money there, but better design will save you way more money in the long term.
Look, I think what would help, for instance, now with the prices of fuel hiking up, everyone now is desperate to go buy. I wish I bought an electric car because they know it would cost them probably more at the outset, but then the capex is higher, but the opex is lower. So that's what we're trying to do. We're investing lots on these sustainable sources of energy. The capex is very high, but certainly the opex will reduce with time and it will pay off. But what will also help is legislation and regulations. I mean, luckily, where we are, these projects, the PIF projects, it's a mandate. They have to be not only ticking the box of the LEED certificate, but there's a whole agenda of sustainability. So there should be regulations and legislations that would start enforce every development to be sustainable.
I agree with you. Personally, I believe that unfortunately we live in a reactive environment.
Yeah.
Many years we try to speak about sustainability, but never come up. Now, because of this crisis, oil and alternative energy, people want to go to the sustainable path, but it should be done earlier, not because there's a consequence of somebody.
You said people.
So unfortunately, we live in a community that's reactive and we don't have the courage to be proactive and anticipate certain trends. But that's another discussion. There are many lobbies that are more in favor of reactivity and few lobbies in anticipating the trends. Mohammed, I learned that you have some private clients, yes. Some private clients here. What is the importance of the private sector in Saudi Arabia at the moment? You spoke only now about the ultra mega giga Fanta projects, but there is also a bigger part of the segment of the Saudi Arabia is driven by the private sector. We have many investors here. What is the importance now and in the future of the Saudi Arabia?
I think, let's start from the past. As I said, we've been in Saudi since 2006, and 95% of the clients were private. So there was a very big push of the private sector in Saudi is very important. I think when they started announcing many of these mega giga projects, there was a bit of a sort of break. Some of them applied their brakes because thinking that probably that was going to cause competition. To sort of they had more access to better land, they had access to better consultants, or they were developing something that would sort of compete with them. But over the last few years, I think it's the opposite. They sort of realized, no, it's what they're creating. They're creating the Saudi destination, and that will help them. There's a lot of very, very, very important developers in Saudi. Some of them are here, some of them are our clients as well, and they're really pushing ahead now. And it is critical. That this is, I think, a very clear example is the success maybe of Dubai in comparison to Qatar. These two things, it's really the private sector. The vision of the country, of the ruler, to develop something, if it's not supported with the private sector, it will not succeed. And I think this is very important, and the private sector is seeing it, and now they're really, we as I said, before we had probably 95% of our projects were private. When the Giga project started, 100% was not public, PIF, basically, 100%. Now it's picking up. Now it probably is about 40% private and 60% PIF. So I think it's going in the right direction, and it will be part of the success for sure.
Thanks a lot. Last question, that is a tricky question that we were discussing for you. What is the challenge from a consultant working with these guys? These guys,
individually,
not you, but the consultant working because they are very attractive, ultra mega Fanta projects. But sometimes it's not easy working with them. What is?
She said 10 minutes on this.
I'll answer that question.
What is the main concern or the main issue we have? If there are.
Yeah, well, I'm going to shoot my foot. No, but basically, I think the most challenging thing is the speed of these things. The time that we have to deliver these projects. It's unhumane, really. It is. But it's the rhythm. On the bright side, the sort of technical side of the client is helps a lot. It's almost, working with Zach is like having a professor, I don't correct with him, I don't show him, I don't present a project. So things like that is a good side. But please just give us a bit more time. That's all we have.
I think the challenge that the consultants will face working on these giga projects is how they scale up their operations, and then what do you do afterwards? Like, we have projects which suddenly you can, and it's a human habit. When you work with a consultant and they've performed well, you start throwing more work on them. And for them, should I take more work? Should I take less work? What do I do here? And then eventually they end up taking with a bit of pressure from our side, with them their appetite to grow. So scaling up an operation for a consultant and then suddenly finding yourself, everyone has experienced it. I was a consultant before. This is very difficult. Seriously, sometimes you wish you can stage a project, you can tell them, look, you're going to have work for the next 5 years, because a consultancy cannot, I think, just plan their growth based on 1 year or 2 years because they suddenly got a huge project. It's very difficult. I know it's very difficult. We're facing it as well because we have to grow. The more projects that we get, we have to grow the internal teams to cope with that pressure, to be able to manage these projects, and it trickles down to the consultants as well.
And the main challenge now, with both developments, we actually have people on site. So we're actually starting construction. And site supervision people, it's very difficult. There are certain positions that do not exist in Saudi, really. We're trying to get people in, but obviously it's not easy. And it's not like you're giving them a job in Riyadh or in Jeddah. They're in the middle of the desert, basically.
Yeah. This is the honeymoon, what we call the honeymoon period, because everyone's sitting in the air-conditioned offices or at home, designing and enjoying the design process. When projects will move on site, that will be the biggest challenge for them and for us. And this goes back to the question how to retain staff. It will be challenging to start sending people because of where the projects are. You're in a remote area, the closest airport is 3 hours drive. That becomes a challenge. How are you going to move staff and place them there with families? If you're looking for senior staff, you're looking at someone who are in the 40s and above. Typically they have kids, you want to provide schools, you want to provide the whole thing. So it's becoming challenging as we progress with these projects, not only in terms of the scale, but when you go to the construction, this is a huge challenge for both.
That's right, and you definitely need a robust presence on site. The site supervision which you were talking about, absolutely essential. And you mentioned earlier, a topic we kind of deflected was the availability of skilled labor, okay, and then a construction management expertise. Speaking of Disney, I mean, every Disney project is absolutely crawling with Disney experts inspecting everything nonstop, and nobody is going to do that on the scale of a Qiddiya. It's just too expensive. But and the kinds of things that you find, the kinds of mistakes that you find are mind-boggling. You would never think in a million years that some of this stuff could go wrong. So we have to, in order to meet our users' expectations, our stakeholders' expectations, we have to find a way to get the right people on site for the inspections and for the sustainability, environmental controls, all that kind of thing. So we'll do it.
Thanks a lot, guys.